All right, let's call this episode 14 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your host, Jordan Goldstein, former professor, PhD, doctor, life coach, fitness trainer, endurance training coach, tribal professor, all of the above. I am excited for today's episode because I am going to dive right back into the world of philosophy, but not a philosophy that is disconnected and detached from reality. My philosophy is not one that exists solely in the realm of ideas, metaphysics, the place of forms. It is a philosophy that must be lived and experienced in the world for it to be whole, complete, and realized. And I really enjoy taking inspiration from the conversations that I have with my athletes, with my coaching clients, about the meaning of sport and ultimately a deeper understanding of why we come to this particular activity as a means for personal development, self-knowledge, self-mastery, self-actualization, realizing the divine spark or the divine gift within ourselves, manifesting our true potential into the world. And I had an amazing conversation with two athletes on our tribal training team who are both traveling to Panama City Beach in Florida for the full Ironman that's happening on November the 2nd. And I'm super pumped about this event because we have 11 athletes on the team that are running it. Head coach Ryan will be there, and I'm going to be making my first appearance in a solely coaching capacity as the tribal professor, traveling down to Florida and live coaching and supporting all 11 of our athletes who will be in the arena. But what strikes me about the two conversations that I have are related to the different aims of the individuals in terms of what they're hoping to find about themselves. And to clarify, what they're hoping to find out about themselves. And for one of these athletes in particular, the idea of meeting physical ruin is an attractive target. And when I say physical ruin, I mean that breaking point where we come up against incredible amounts of physical pain and discomfort. And this particular athlete is relishing the opportunity to feel the intensity of pain in order to break through, in order to transcend. This particular athlete, they have a history of, we'll say, intense sporting competitions. And so the idea of being driven towards physical ruin is the signal that helps this particular individual extract out deep lessons of self. But another individual on the team, the other one I was talking with, has no desire to be driven toward that physical ruin. Like, if this particular athlete feels those same physical sensations that the other athlete wants, they're likely going to be quitting the race. And that's not a statement on one person's toughness and resilience versus the other person's, we'll say, like, weak spirit. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's more about what is the challenge, what is the crucible, what is the truly difficult thing for me, what's the truly easy thing for me. And for each individual, that's different. So what I want to talk to you today about is this idea of physical ruin. What is this idea? Why are some people completely drawn towards it? Why do some people move away from it, even when both are in the same arena? And how can these seemingly opposite positions lead us to the same destination, which is truthful self-knowledge that we can incorporate into our overall characters to reach towards our true potential within the arena, but most importantly, outside of the arena. Now, we're talking about an endurance sport context here, but I want everybody who's listening to appreciate that this can be seen in all forms of different sporting competitions, right? Each athlete derives something different from the physical motions of any particular sport. That's the first thing to recognize. We may be playing the same sports, but we're all having different experiences based on our frame, based on our disposition, and based upon what we are hoping to extract out of the experience. And in an endurance sport context, right, we need to figure out what is the nature of this event, what drives people towards these styles of competitions with their bodies, and how do we get inside of the game in order to learn the deep lessons of the game. And all of this is predicated upon a really deep Aristotelian understanding of morality, of interest and passion, and of purpose and of becoming. When we understand the nature of an activity, any activity, and we aim at it with our internal motivation, our inner desires, and our heart, that becomes an example of our moral action in the world, the bringing of our best selves to extract out the best lessons of an activity in order to transcend limitations. So for endurance sport, what's the nature of endurance sport? It's something like this. The race doesn't start until the first time I want to quit. You're never going to have that thought go through your mind in a 100-meter sprint. It's over before you can even figure out that you don't want to be doing it. And for some longer distances in terms of running, for some people, endurance might be a 10K run where I'm not a runner, and after a kilometer and a half, I want to quit. Boom. Now you're in an endurance event because you got 8.5 more kilometers to go. How are you going to do it? So it's not so much about the duration of any one event in particular. It's about a long duration relative to you where you're going to be brought against yourself in the form of wanting to quit, right? Now we're starting to get somewhere with this idea of physical pain and physical ruin. What makes people want to quit the very first time in, say, like a long distance running race? For a lot of people, that's physical pain. Oh, I got a blister. Oh, I got a muscle issue. I'm seizing up. Maybe I'm dehydrated. But it's this physical pain. It's this physical sensation that you don't want to have to deal with anymore. And for some people, feeling that physical pain and being able to overcome it is the type of self-knowledge that they need about themselves. Like they need to feel that intensity of the pain because that's the signal that they're looking to overcome in terms of wanting to quit versus wanting to keep moving. But that's not everybody who signs up for an endurance event. There are people who look for the emotional pain, who look for the spiritual pain, who want to see within themselves, when things get hard or difficult, am I able to rise up? And for some, that's not physical pain. For some, it's more about internal doubt. It's more about an internal willingness to prove the internal narratives about yourself incorrect. So it's not about a willingness to eat pain in a physical sense. It's a willingness to be honest with self. and the honesty of the competition through the physical sensations of discomfort, right? There's a big difference between pain and discomfort when we're talking about this issue. For them, that's how it works. Now, I want to give you a sense of my latest race experience to help further deepen this discussion and this understanding of the role of physical pain in driving individuals towards transcendence through sport. Physical pain is not something that just lives in the body. There's a psychosomatic component. There's a psychological component to pain. Pain doesn't feel the same in certain situations. My body can counteract pain. Think about something like natural childbirth, for example. Women are able to tap into pain-reducing hormones that are, 100 times more powerful than like the morphine or whatever in that cocktail you get in the epidural, right? Your body can produce immense amounts of pain-reducing hormones so that you're not feeling the physical sensation in the moment so that you can overcome it. So pain isn't this objective thing because it's a difference in our experiences and it's a difference in our context and our environments are going to dictate how we feel the reality of that pain. And in a race context, what I believe happens in a lot of these instances where physical pain becomes the reason why people quit, it's really not the physical pain. It's a sabotage sent from the brain in order to highlight an excuse that you want. And oftentimes, physical pain becomes this external justification. I could have kept going, but I could have made it one more lap if only I wasn't dealing with this thing. And for some people, the moment a physical niggle starts to dominate their thinking, that's the challenge. It's, oh my gosh, my brain is trying to tell me that this thing is preventing me from going further, but I know it's not that bad. I know that I can push through. Why are all of these thoughts of quitting flooding into my head right now? The body and the mind almost tag team you. They tag team you in terms of a rationalization. Because what we really want is to quit, but have people not call us a quitter. We want the effort to stop, but we want the recognition that comes along with doing the hard thing and not giving up. So physical pain becomes this objective, it becomes this objective measurement that we can manage our reputations by. And what a lot of people need in these races is to stop worrying about managing their reputations. And so this physical pain, this physical ruin, it looks different for everybody. So in my latest race context, which was the Backyard Ultra, what did I start to hear in my brain? The moment it got really difficult for me, where it started to become harder and harder to maintain that pace, to come in each lap with the right amount of time to refuel, rehydrate, get the mind square to go back out for another 4 1/6 mile loop. The brain was searching for something. It wanted something to hold on to that I could pass off to other people. And for me, that was physical pain related to my kidneys, which was real. I'm not going to lie, it was real. But was it the kind of thing that if I continued to push through would have, let's say, sent me to the emergency room? Probably not. Was there more physical pain that I could have eaten? Sure. Certainly. Does that make me a quitter? I mean, I guess that's up to you to decide. But the point of my race wasn't to crawl across the finish line by any means necessary on the very final lap. It was to see how well I could do running my own style, my own pacing, and feeling comfortable. So once you stop feeling comfortable in that situation, that's the battle. And the physical discomfort was a signal to fight back against my brain, which was, I believe, trying to sabotage me. It did a pretty good job. So the physical pain was real, but my mind was amplifying it up, because if I amplify it up, then it's a justifiable excuses why I can't keep going, and then other people are going to accept it. They're going to accept it. So that's a little bit of the management that goes on inside of your head, and everybody kind of understands this. We've all got examples. And there were a few things that I was able to do that aren't related to pushing through incredible amounts of physical pain that showed I wasn't quitting. I really wanted to stop after lap 18. That's when Louis, who's one of my heroes, he went out. And it's not as if, like, when he goes out, I get permission to go out, but it means that this is a hard race, and people who've done races that are longer than me are going out. People that I admire and look up to, they're going out. But I knew that I had more to give, and I wasn't about to let my brain tell me I was in more pain than I really was, until it was the absolute truth. And lap 19, lap 20, I did not want to go out. Oh my gosh, did I not want to go out. But I had a couple of really big mental victories right at the beginning of coming back in that I believe are the exact kinds of wins and overcoming that I was searching for. So everybody already knew at mile 18 that I was hurting, that I was having some kidney issues, and that the pain was not going away and was getting worse. And all that's true. And it would have been easy to sit down in that chair and say, can't go any further. But I knew that would have been quitting. So one of the things that I did right away on mile 19 or lap 19 to get myself out there, I knew I needed to charge my watch. It was very low on battery. So the first thing I did was I took the watch off. I handed it to one of my crew members. I forget exactly who it was. And I said, I need this charged up for the next lap. Get it on the charger. I'll be ready to go. That forces me then to make peace with the pain as opposed to using it as an excuse. And I did the same thing on the next lap, right? I really wanted to stay in the chair. I really didn't want to go back out. But I did the things that were necessary within the first minute of coming back into camp that would set me up for success. So that I knew that I wasn't going to have any excuse. I was just going to have to get up. I was going to have to fight through the negative thoughts and the negative pain that I was experiencing. Now, eventually, I found the spot of ruin, but it wasn't physical ruin, right? I could still go, but it was that spiritual ruin. It was, I have no more willpower. I'm not willing to eat any more adversity. I'm not willing to put anything else on the line. I've gotten what I need. I've proven the lessons that I need to myself, and I don't need to break my body any further. I don't need to break my body any further. There is no glory on dying on your shield in any one of these races, friends. There's just not. At least for me, I don't get the satisfaction from, oh my gosh, I just twisted my ankle. Let me go run another 50 miles on this twisted ankle so that I get permanent ankle damage, and then I've jeopardized my physical health and my competitive abilities for the rest of my life because I just had to gut through it. That's not what I'm personally out there for. That's like the one athlete that I was talking with. He doesn't need to physically destroy himself in order to get that self-knowledge. But Some of us do. Some of us need that type of crucible, right? One of the guys at the backyard, and just to show you how the psychology of the backyard is so different from other endurance events, like you see people at the Ironman, you see people at 100-mile ultras, like crawling across the finish line, right? You very rarely see that happen at a backyard ultra because the mind comes in to sabotage you before the body has a chance to to die, basically, for most people. But we had one guy who pushed 100K and he blew up his Achilles for the next month because of it. So he felt physical pain, he felt physical ruin, and he decided the thing that I need to do is absolutely keep going and push through. And like this guy was hallucinating, basically. That's how I describe his last 4 laps. He just hallucinated his way through it, right? He had to figure out some kind of a way to overcome the enormous amount of physical pain that he was putting his body through. And he had to feel that intensity in order to rise above whatever limitation he had set out to conquer, right? Think about racing in a way that injures you for the next month. Not a lot of people are willing to do that. But some people have to. Some people have to. And that's like our other athlete. The guy who has the intense history in sports. And when I say intense history, I mean, we're talking like daredevil style sports. Like death defying kinds of sports. Sports where people get paralyzed. Sports where people don't make it out alive. He's drawn to that. If he doesn't feel that type of physical conquering over and through physical ruin, there's no self-knowledge to be gained. There's none. Does that make him tougher than somebody like me who doesn't require or desire to ever really even feel that type of a physical overcoming, an intense, extreme physical overcoming? No. Is he more reckless? Is he less caring about himself and his future responsibilities because he's willing to break himself off, literally, in order to cross that finish line? No, I don't think so either. I think what this discussion is teaching me in real time, this is really like me philosophizing in the moment. Like I don't have any notes. I just had this idea pop into my head yesterday on a trail run that, hey, I really like the difference in understanding what that overcoming has to be between these two athletes that I just had great conversations with. Maybe I'll just talk about that idea and see what happens. So what's clear to me now, which was maybe a little bit clouded before I even decided to hop on and press record and share these thoughts with everybody out here. The quit is always different for everybody. The things that make one person quit are not the things that make another person quit. People have different pain thresholds, different pain tolerances. People feel things differently in the body. Some people have strength in some areas and complete weaknesses in others. Some people get amped up with a feeling of physical pain. Other people start to shrink. You think about like that boxer who needs to be punched in the face a few times before they start to actually, box their game, box their match. Others, the whole goal is to never get hit once. And because we are not primarily utilizing these races for performance, we're using the competition and the training as vehicles of self-knowledge. Well, it doesn't matter what your quick condition looks like in comparison to my quick condition. It doesn't matter how you experience physical ruin in a spectacular running on a broken leg fashion versus me And my sense of physical ruin, where it's like more of a spiritual willpower being drained out of you, where you're just not willing to eat any more of it, as opposed to, I just physically can't keep going. I don't think one quick condition is more honorable than the other. I think it's related to the individual who then has to decide when they're in or when they're out, when it's too much or when it's not enough. And thinking about physical ruin like this, I think, is the proper way for us to open up sports for self knowledge, for eventual self mastery. And one of the things that has been just hyper real to me throughout this past year of coaching, of philosophizing, of reading and synthesizing ideas and experiences is that truth comes from the heart, and it reverberates and resonates on out when we open up our hearts. When we open up our hearts. So in the endurance context, what I need to do to feel the transcendence is to open up my heart to the possibility of me wanting to quit and overcoming that with the best parts of me from the inside. And because each of our hearts are different and they're all aimed in different areas and they reverberate and resonate different individual truths, we should not expect that the adversity that each one of us has to overcome within any sporting context should look like the adversity that another person deals with. So if you're somebody that has to physically break themselves up before it's over, that's just information about who you are and the type of things you need to challenge yourself to grow. And it's the same with that person who maybe doesn't want to run on the broken foot, but would rather bring themselves into contact with the knowledge of the self-sabotage that, here's where I'm trying to get myself to quit. Can I simply overcome that? For some people, it's in the body. For some people, it's in the mind. For some people, it's in the spirit. And here's another cool wrinkle in all this. It might change depending on the race you're in. It might change depending on the competition. It might change depending on how old you are. It might change on depending on who you're racing with. So it's never a one-size-fits-all standard rule that this is what it looks like to honorably go to the limit. That looks different for each individual. And it's a really intriguing way to understand this idea of physical ruin, right? Which we might assume is objective. But once we start to peel back the layers, we begin to realize that it is a lot more subjective. And we should lean in and embrace that as opposed to throwing up our hands and saying, we can't, since we can't compare and measure, there's no value we can't extract. Nah, I don't believe that. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that toughness looks different for every person. Resiliency looks different for every person. Quitting versus going to the limit looks different for every person. And it's not as simple as looking at the injuries that the person accumulated or didn't accumulate, because we just don't know what signal on the inside that person is resonating with when it comes to their own needing to overcome, needing to go through, able to overcome, able to go through. And ultimately, know thyself. Know thyself internally first. Don't externally compare to figure out who you are. Sports teach us this in so many interesting and intriguing ways. Thank you for coming along this intellectual exploration into this idea of physical ruin and how it relates to knowing ourselves through sport. Catch you guys in the next one.